Much has been said about brand safety and the harm done by overblocking news. News impressions are up by as much as 30%, yet ad sales are down because brands are concerned about the effect that controversial news subjects may have on their brand image. And as much as this is difficult for the large news organizations, it's having a devastating effect on small local news sites. Let me share some data with you. 1 in 3 citizens in the US, which is the largest and wealthiest market in the world, now lives in what's called a media desert, meaning their community is no longer served by a daily newspaper. And 1,800 local newspapers have closed or merged since 2004. Also, there's a 35% decline in state house reporters, significantly reducing transparency of local government. Now, what these state house reporters do is they build trust and civic engagement from the ground up. And local news plays a critical role in this process. So it's the local reporters who hold public officials to account, track local budgets and spending, cover local policies and elections. And without solid local reporting, corruption increases. And what this means to us is that social media, people turn to social media for news where disinformation is hard to control. And more than 50% of conservative young men now claim that social media is their main source of news. And this isn't just true in the US. Global trends look similar, particularly in developing markets. But that was all before COVID-19. And whilst the demand for local news has never been higher or more important, the coronavirus has added a new layer of restrictions for ads in news. And news impressions are up as people are depending on their local newspapers for reliable news and updates in this area, but ads are way down since the beginning of this crisis. And some marketers stay away from news entirely, and others are aggressively blocking any news with COVID-19 or coronavirus in the text, which, let's face it, is kind of most of the news at the moment. An industry analyst, Ken Doctor, calls this an extinction event for some publications already experiencing lower ad revenue than 2008 and 2009. And there was Joshua Benton, there was an article by Joshua Benton in the Harvard Neiman Lab, predicts that this will be the worst year ever for local news, many of whom are struggling to stay alive or were struggling to stay alive before COVID-19, but it's now a critical time for them. This is not just a plea to support and sustain journalism and keep news organizations in business, as important as that is. The fact is that news is a very effective advertising vehicle. Firstly, readers are engaged with the articles that they choose to read. They spend longer reading them. There's more dwell time, and that means a better opportunity for your ads to be seen. But readers also trust their favorite local newspaper, and that trust rubs off on advertising. And also, newspapers are a brand safe environment in the main. They have high viewability, they have low ad fraud, particularly if one uses the verification tools at our disposal. So marketers are still worried about their ads being seen adjacent to the news of the virus. But research shows that people are not turned off brands if they see ads adjacent to COVID-19 news. Integral Ad Science did some research recently that showed that 74% of people are fine with it. There's some exceptions for food and travel, and that makes sense. And other research shows that the harder the news, the better. So research does not support the current marketer concerns. And whilst big media are suffering, it's a crisis for local news. Many of them are not going to get through this. So the last hope for local newspapers is advertising. You might ask what subscriptions are likely to help with, and will they solve the problem? But there was also Reuters research that showed that the median number of news subs per US resident is 1. And those subscriptions are likely distributed to the larger media organizations. So Andy, you asked about a solution. This news needs ad revenue. And it's vital at this time to include newspapers and especially local papers on media schedules. Without it, I think we're in grave danger. This isn't just about keeping newspapers alive, it's about free speech and democracy that literally depend on it. And I'm not advocating for the removal of block lists entirely. If you need to use keyword blocking, don't use it as a blunt tool. I think that's been the big message that's come through all of this and by a number of other people who've spoken about it. Don't use exact match COVID-19 or coronavirus exclusions. This is because this is automatically going to demonetize all content that contains these words. Instead, use something like exclusions which will reduce the possibility of overblocking. Things like COVID-19 death or COVID-19 death count or coronavirus death toll or COVID-19 miracle cure or a combination of those words. And here you can work with your agency or verification provider if you need help with a strategy. And I would say to the verification providers, although they're following the instructions from agencies and marketers have given those agencies guidance about limiting risk in the news environment, I think make sure that you educate your clients on how to use keywords as a strategic tool rather than a blunt tool.